the way the schooling system is now, they're like, don't get it wrong. Get it wrong, you get an F. Then you get in trouble. And, it's like.
And then you get home and expect to get into more trouble. And then you build this anxiety around not succeeding to whose standard.
Yeah, and not taking a risk. And, I'm scared to answer this. I'm scared to try it because what if I get it wrong? Then I'm going to get in trouble. And my mom,
Oh, yeah.
It's wired into society. Good day, everyone. You guys, welcome to the Beltran podcast. We have another awesome guest today, local entrepreneur, like we like to do, with some really cool stories. We have Alannah Ghazal here today with Coldwell Banker Realty, and also another little side business that you have. It's Keepin U Posted. So Keepin U Posted, you guys just come and help put up the real estate signs. Is that what it is?
The sign posts specifically. We're out to give a great first impression from the street, and we allow our agents to either put up their own signage or they're welcome to store it with us, and we make them look great. That's the goal.
Super cool. Yeah, man, because you get sweaty. I got my suit and tie on. I'm out there with a post hole digger.
You betcha. Yeah. And every product is different, so there's pros and cons that come with them. So.
Okay, so very cool. Well, I can't wait to get into, your motivation to get into all of this. But what we like to start with, a lot of the entrepreneurs, most of them that I have spoken to, look back on their childhood and look back and say, man, I used to like to sell candy, or, anytime I went to the store, I had thoughts. So looking back, like, what kind of child were you? I'm curious, do you remember any times when you were a kid that kind of you look back, it's like, man, that entrepreneur in me was shining.
Yeah, that moment where you're like, I should have seen that coming.
Yeah,
had a lot of those. I would describe myself as a kid who liked to be around the adults.
Okay.
I was a lot more interested in what was going on, what the ideas in the room were, and what everybody's doing right now. And the kids in my life just didn't find those things interesting.
Yeah.
So I found myself in a lot more adult circles growing up.
Okay.
Yeah. My mom was, for all intents and purposes, a single mom a lot of the time. So we were very fortunate to have great support at home. My mom's parents, particularly my grandfather, was so present, and he was a contractor.
Oh, nice.
Yeah. And
the hustler. He was out there doing it.
Oh, yeah, and so meticulous. The perfectionist nature definitely rubbed off, thank God.
Okay.
But it was really interesting because my mom was a pastor. She got really passionate about ministry very early in life. So I have a pastor for a mother and a contractor for that sort of father figure. And so when mom needed her attention on what she was doing, we went to work with grandpa a lot.
Oh, wow.
Learned a lot of those valuable skills and that work ethic, and I'm so grateful now. The biggest sadness in the whole thing is that other people didn't get to have that experience, so they have no idea how much better the quality of what they're putting out could be if they had a system or a process or the desire to undo something, to put it back in right if they notice something off. That's something you don't see a lot, and that is absolutely a taught thing.
Yeah, man, and that's so valuable. And actually, like the processes and that kind of stuff, those are things that I'm really trying to instill more of in my life. I'm more of like that butterfly that's out there, like, oh, this is beautiful. Look at this. Oh, try this. Oh, let me do that. And, it all tends to work out okay, but making it to the next level, that's where these processes and that kind of thought process really, really allows you to go to the next level.
It elevates not only other people's expectations of you, but also your expectations of yourself, which I think for those of us who are attracted to growing and attracted to developing and attracted to becoming a better version of ourselves every day, which is the guiding star I continue to, realign with and try to focus on. I feel like that touches every avenue of everything I do.
Yeah, I could definitely see that. We both got in the business around the same time. I think I remember, and
2018-ish.
Yeah. I think I was 19, but yeah, right around that same time, So I saw you hit, and man, you were always at the networking events, and your social media always looked good, and so.
Dude, you're so kind because all of that is crap. My social media was a shambles, I walked in and I had such an amazing, blessed experience coming into the industry. Very unique method of getting in. But when I showed up, I was clueless.
Oh, well, like all of
Like
us.
all of us, and it really came down to having some amazing people come into my world and kind of scoop me up and desire to share what they were learning. And I think that enthusiasm caught fire for me, and I just followed them. I followed them,
Yeah,
and I
man.
just started picking up things that were working and trying things and figuring out what's working for them that is working for me and what's working for them that's not working for me.
But you're trying. That's the beauty of it. You
Yeah.
would have not known if you were just kind of shell shocked and like, I don't know what to do.
Right, right. And I think I carried that enthusiasm for learning into COVID time while everyone else was really getting down and depressed and struggling. And I was right there with them. Somewhere in there, that enthusiasm for problem solving kind of kicked back on in
Nice.
desperation, and just all these amazing ideas just started cranking out. And that's when what you're talking about, just getting the act together, getting the social media together, getting my
Yeah.
presence under my own control, that's when that really took off for me, I
Oh,
think.
yeah, man. Yeah. And that's, adversity brings that out in you. That's what makes you who you are. Some people crumble. Some people, I mean, went into the deepest depression,
Oh, yeah.
wouldn't leave their house, wouldn't answer the phone. I mean,
And phases of that, it's such a natural thing and a
yes.
very human response. But I think the resilience that comes with not only recognizing that, but having the desire to get up, to get
So,
out. It just kept putting me in the path of talking to people that elevated and pushed me so that
yeah.
we could be that support system for each other. And it became very symbiotic and therapeutic during COVID time to surround myself with those kind of like minds.
Yeah, the power of proximity. This comes up. I got goosebumps
Oh, yeah,
thinking
the
about
top
it.
5 people you spend the most time with,
Yeah.
that's truly the clearest picture you have of what you're shaping yourself into.
Yeah, man. It's, remember mom used to always say that?
Oh, yeah.
Show me I see your five best friends. I can see what you're doing. I know what you're doing. I'm like,
Uh-huh.
no, mom, I'm really, you
Oh,
can't,
who are you
hide it.
hanging out with? Who are you
Yeah.
not hanging out with that you should be hanging out with?
Yeah, man.
Yeah.
That's so crazy.
Yeah.
So I'm curious, before you got into the real estate, what kind of jobs did you have before then, or what'd you do?
Oh gosh, I loved the arts, so I actually went to college briefly. Doing what everybody tells you you're supposed to do and trying
Yeah.
to follow the prescribed.
Yeah. The Matrix, as they
Yeah,
say.
yep. I went in with a full music scholarship to
Oh,
college,
wow.
which was really cool, and I was riding that with the desire to find how to express my passion for dance. I wasn't sure what that looked like yet. College was the first opportunity that I had to make those kind of decisions, so I really rolled with that, and it was a total failure. Absolute annihilation because I was supporting myself simultaneously,
Yeah.
and I was just not at the maturity level to be prepared to do that well. So as a result, ended up falling out of that plan and kept finding myself in service roles and being recognized as leadership quality. So continuing to have more and more responsibilities put on me as a result of that, what they perceived as competence. And I kept finding myself growing into the next thing, being invited while I was somewhere to the next step. And eventually I landed in catering,
Okay.
where I spent several years building up a catering company under a phenomenal chef, tragic businessman, but phenomenal chef. And as a result of that, I had to develop so many skills to compensate for so much lack in a business
Oh,
angle
yeah.
that it just, when it became apparent that it was not an industry that I could make more money without continuing to invest more time, right? The money I made was directly correlated to the time invested, and there's so much back end time to that to do it
Oh, yeah.
well and with pride, with that contractor kind of precision and cleanliness that was just necessary. There was no alternative for me.
Yeah.
I realized that I was tapped out of being able to step into the lifestyle and just the vision I had for where I wanted to go. I knew that I had to find something different.
Yeah.
And that was kind of what led me back to the real estate conversation and getting into it ultimately.
Yeah, man. So that guy was lucky to have you.
Oh yeah. Oh
you
yeah.
know,
And in a lot of ways I was lucky to have him. He saw a lot of potential and he grew me from a dishwasher into a sous chef, into a kitchen manager, into the developing of, what ultimately needed him to be on his game to succeed. But I learned so much with that, and I'm so grateful for that.
Yeah, that's, it's another thing, all these little things that we do, you bring something with you. Some people will look at it as like, oh man, that was the worst thing in my life, and can sit back and just talk about all the bad things, but don't realize, how much you learned.
Oh,
And
yeah.
like everything is like you're filling your tool bag for life. Every job, every relationship, every downfall, every failure, as they would call it.
Oh, yeah.
That's just another tool in your belt.
Oh, yeah.
Tool in your belt.
I think the relationship with failure is something people don't talk about enough.
Yeah.
And I think it's very important to be successful.
Oh, yeah.
I've learned it over and over again and had it told to me by people who failed hard.
Yeah.
And came to succeed hard afterwards. And that, it was very motivating.
Yeah.
Because all I could see was my failure, right? Like most of us, we focus on the negative.
And they teach you, like, the way the schooling system is now. They're like, don't get it wrong. Get it wrong, you get an F. Then you get in trouble. And, it's like...
And then you get home and expect to get into more trouble. And then you build this anxiety around not succeeding to whose standard.
Yeah, and not taking a risk. And, oh, I'm scared to answer this. I'm scared to try because what if I get it wrong? Then I'm going to get in trouble. And my mom,
Oh, yeah.
It's wired into society, So a lot of times when you're young, like and it sucks to say, but, a lot of the kids that were kind of looked at as being, the rebels, not the good kid.
Yeah.
A lot of times they're the ones that end up being the business owners, the inventors, people that take those big risks. That's what it takes.
And the ones that ask the questions that may not be popular in the room.
I think we were talking earlier.
Oh, gosh. I've got a phenomenal partner, just so amazing, and a tremendous support system.
Yes.
Brilliant. Way smarter than me. And she has 2 sons that I love with every fiber of my being. They are just beyond describing. They make me crazy, and I had no idea that 2 people who could annoy me so thoroughly to my bones, I couldn't imagine a day without them annoying me.
That's it.
And it's such a strange realization to get to that point. You're like, I didn't make you, but you're definitely mine, and you're stuck with me now.
True love.
Here we are.
True love. Yeah, that's amazing.
Yeah.
How old are they?
One is 15 now, and the other is 13.
Oh,
both boys.
wow.
Very musical, very talented. They have a tendency of asking the hard questions, and I find myself in the position getting frustrated, having to step back and go, all of this is a good thing.
Yes.
All of this is a good thing. I'm going to be so glad later. I just have to survive it now.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
So when you were working in the catering, was there like one day when you're like, you know what? I can't do this. Like, was it like a crazy busy dinner that everything was going wrong, or was there anything like that, or just over time?
It's funny. I have so many memories of, and I'm sure anyone who's ever catered will, of the parties that go great versus the absolute disasters.
I was in the restaurant business for a long time.
I took a lot of pride in what behind the scenes would have absolutely been classified as a disaster, never making it to the front room. The client not having any idea what was going on, and at the end of the day, them being so pleased with the outcome,
like
while I'm hiding behind the curtain, tearing my hair out over the nonsense. I found that to be very gratifying. Which, how funny! It's exactly what real estate can be described as now, a lot of the time.
Yeah.
But not allowing the majority of that emotional upheaval to get to them at all. I was very proud of. So actually the experience that just was my stopping point was the mismanagement of funds. And as I started to see it affect people and me knowing how it was affecting their lives, watching the people who needed to be handling the money right mishandle it, it became so clear to me that I have ethics, I have morals, I have integrity. I literally can't walk into this place for another day. I left my key on the countertop when I left.
Wow.
And I was very clear that I was done. And that was the point that I immediately had to take, okay, gosh, here's the vision for what I want my future to look like. If the biggest obstacle is how much money I can make with the blood, sweat, and tears I put in, what disassociates those 2 things? And real estate naturally comes up out of the soup as one of those opportunities.
Yep.
And I had, again, great connections with wonderful people who helped me get started. And no looking back.
So that kind of goes into it, and you don't have to share the names, but like who are like say 2 or 3 of the people that you can look back and say, wow, being around you guys really, really helped take my life,
Oh,
in the
sure.
right direction.
Absolutely. Well, my mom and my grandfather, who I mentioned earlier,
Yeah.
absolutely critical for the way that I have developed. Also, Ed Myers, who is another
Okay.
local agent who you may or may not know.
I don't know Ed.
Ed is wonderful.
I
Ed
need to
and
get to know
Aileen
him.
have been in the business for easily over 20 years. They've been
Okay.
doing this forever. He's a military man behind it. We had a lot in common from a personality perspective. And I actually, while I was in catering, had approached him. I was looking for a place to live. And I was getting so frustrated because my experience with a couple of realtors that had come into my workplace that I had entrusted with my situation and was looking for guidance on the roadmap to successfully meeting the goal of owning a home, they were terrible experiences. And I was ticked because I couldn't help but think, boy, I could do that better. And then you write it off as narcissism and you move on. And I ended up coming into contact with Ed. And by the time our conversation had ended, he had plotted out a roadmap, had told me that my goals couldn't be met now, but here's how they could be met. Here's the time frame they could be met.
Wow.
And as I'm asking all of these questions, like you're mentioning, questions are really the building blocks of everything, right? He started looking at me funny and he goes, "Have you ever thought about doing this? Like, ever?" And I laughed and I said no. And so I had circled back to him after I left catering and I said, I've been giving this a lot of thought, and what does it look like? What do I have to invest to be able to start in the real estate industry? And he was amazing. He laid out, the A to G roadmap of just one step at a time back when we wrote stuff with a pencil and paper,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
He's writing out. And I looked at him and I started to cry at his desk. I was like, I can't afford this. I can't even afford the entry into this industry. How am I going to elevate my life? And he said, listen, I'll make you a deal. If you can get through A to E by yourself, I will handle, F and G,
Wow.
and we will get you started. And I'm not about a handout, but I am about a hand up. And so we worked out an arrangement where I paid back every dollar. And he helped me get into the industry I'm in now, and I'm forever grateful to him and Aileen for giving me that
I love
chance.
that
Yeah.
so much, man. And once, I think today in this conversation, I've had more goosebumps than any of the past interviews so far. It's just because these moments.
Oh, they're big moments, and
God.
they feel so small at the time because you're so focused on the next thing. And looking back, I'm like, that was a hugely pivotal moment for me.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
then inside your mind, you're feeling fear,
Terror.
and inadequate. Like I don't have what it takes. I can't do it. You're feeling all these things, but once again, one of the people you were around, all it took was just a couple words, a little bit of support, a little bit of push, man, and Jesus, life could have been completely different.
Totally. And I learned very early that when the door closes, you start looking for where the light's shining in. Is it a window? Is it a crack? Is it another door? Is it
I
a
love
false
that.
wall? Does it look like a wall, but maybe it's not? Maybe it's just a curtain. I had to start training myself to find that, and you fall a lot when you're learning that.
Oh yeah.
I was lucky to have great people around me.
Yeah, and then you say it's a training thing, it's
yeah.
growing up. It's just the system doesn't reinforce that type of thinking.
No, it doesn't.
If something's bad, it's bad, and you should feel bad, and
And there's nothing you can do about it because that's the way it's always been.
Yeah. Oh yeah. And what the absolute worst thing, but it's if once again you surround yourself around people that have done it. These are the things that I've learned. Hey, it's gonna be okay.
Oh yeah.
Fine. Let's find a way. Man, this past week I had a deal we were going to close. A day before closing, I was talking to the lender, and he came out and was like, "This isn't happening now." I was like, "Well, this is gonna happen." I had two other deals. I mean, my client, I was representing both sides. One of my client had two other deals based on this, which were detrimental. I mean, it was really intense.
Deep.
And I dug down. I figured it out. What has to happen? Did it? Made it happen. We only had to extend it for 2 days, from Friday to Monday. He called me this morning. He was
it a TRID thing?
What's that?
Was it a TRID thing, having to get closed out for a loan?
No, well, it was an appraisal.
Yeah.
There was a lot of things that just came up last minute. That everything was good and all this, whatever it was. It's the game. We're in it.
Oh yeah.
But he called me today. He was like, "Al, I can't thank you enough because I was defeated. I was done. This wasn't happening, But
you were that push.
Yeah, this composure, you have to have that composure. I could have been freaking out with him too. I was like, all right, let's step back, look at all of it. What are we missing? What has to happen? We went, fixed stuff. We had to fix it was like little things we had to fix. I had to get a hold of the appraiser. They couldn't get a hold of him for 2 weeks. I'd found a way, every phone number, Google search, text messages, emails, called the business, found them, got them to come out, reinspect. I mean, everything within a day,
That's perseverance.
Yeah, but once again, it comes down to that, like, hey, I'm in a dark room right now. There's light. You just got to find it and go to it. Composure. Alex Haig, he's got the stoic agent.
Oh, yeah.
You have to have that stoicism and just be like, okay, take it all in. This is where we are. Where do we need to go?
Absolutely. And one of those amazing takeaways, 'cause I've spent some time with Alex, brilliant mind.
Oh, yes.
There's a lot to be said and a lot that I've learned from observing. How do you not allow your environment to be dictating your emotional state? And he's a lot farther along down that path. I have a lot of respect for him.
Yeah, Marcus Aurelius. That's somebody I study a lot, and I relate a lot to his studies, about stoicism, how important, and really that gives you so much more freedom in life.
It is when you're not directly attached to what's going on around you. You have the clarity of mind to find the light in the dark room.
People could be talking junk to you and this and attacking you. It's just like, man, I'm sorry you're feeling the way you are. I'm cool,
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a beautiful thing.
Yeah, our world is designed to, well, when they hit, you hit back.
Yeah.
We're designed to retaliate, and most of us retaliate with words. Most of us have the wherewithal to keep our hands to ourselves, but we don't keep our mind to ourselves. We don't keep our thoughts to ourselves.
Oh, wow, yeah.
We certainly don't shut down the thoughts when we have them. We pride ourselves on not saying everything that we think, but how many of us challenge ourselves to not even think that, or to challenge the thought?
Yeah.
I had somebody share with me years ago that the first thought that comes to mind when you hear something that might trip your buttons somehow, the first thing that comes to mind is what society's programmed you to think. The second thing you think, what immediately follows that first thought, is what you actually think. You driving the meat suit. And I started finding that really profound as I observed it, and started realizing, boy, the first thing that came to mind was just silver tongue. It was venom.
Yeah.
I am an annihilator. I am an ice queen. I am a warrior with words, and that can be a very, very easily abused weapon. And as I gained awareness of it, I started challenging it actively, and now I find a lot more peace that comes with that not being the first thought, I think, often.
Wow.
Yeah.
So it almost goes to, like, first is brain, because brain is learned, then comes heart, which is more instinct and,
And then comes the observer, recognizing both of them and being able to find the difference between the two.
Wow.
Where's that space in the middle, and how much space is there, and is that a good thing or not?
Oh, I love it, man. I love talking about this stuff.
Me too.
Yes, it's great. This is great. So, being in business, being a real estate agent, that is being an entrepreneur. It's your own business. Like, you make it or you don't. You know what you spend. You got to spend where you spend. You got to know the time. You got to schedule your time. You could wake up and not do anything, and you ain't going to make nothing.
Right.
So at what point did you start to see an opportunity with your other business?
Well, actually, as a matter of fact, I had mentioned that COVID was a bit of a sticking point, that as I moved through the bottleneck, all these ideas and problem solving just started to become the norm. And I started getting all these listings, and it was amazing. It was the most listings I had had up to that point. And I couldn't find someone to install the posts.
Oh, wow.
I was having a horrible time getting people to answer the phone and get the job done. And then, God forbid, having it done up to my standards, which we've mentioned are pretty high.
Yeah.
All right. So it got to a point where I said, you know what, forget this. I'm going to go online. I'm going to order my own. I'm going to put up my own. And it started off as just for me. And I started getting so many compliments. People would go to show the home that I had listed, and they'd come out and they'd talk about the home, but then they'd ask me about the post and who did that for you.
Really?
Yeah. And I couldn't believe it. I thought it was a fluke the first couple of times, and it just kept happening. And then I started having a couple of my comrades that had been on my team a few years ago reach out to me, and they go, hey, would you do this for me? And so I
Yeah.
got a couple, and I was like, you know what? If I made a couple bucks off of it, I'm doing them a favor. We're in symbiotic business. It's why not? And that way maybe it can make back what I spent, and maybe a little extra, put a little gas in my tank, whatever. And it got to the point. I heard you put theirs up. Will you put mine up? Why aren't you doing this yet? Why aren't you doing this yet? I got that question at least 3 or 4 times.
Wow.
And so I went home that night to my partner, and I said to her, I said, I think I'm going to write a business plan. I think I'm going to start a business. She looked at me like I had lost my mind. But she didn't say anything to that effect. She was like, okay. Gave it no
Wow.
energy in either direction. She's like, if you want to do it, fine. So I said, okay, if I do write this business plan, would you be willing to sit down and red pen it for me? Just tear it apart. She said, yeah. Yeah. So that's exactly what I did.
Nice.
I went home, I wrote up a business plan, took a few days to, do the research and get it all together. And I put together like this really great bougie presentation on paper. And I sat down the whole family, like all the adults in the room, and they all got a copy and they all got a red pen. And I told them, I said, listen, I want you to pretend that you have $5,000 just sitting around. You got nothing to do with it. Why wouldn't you invest it in this? I want you to pick it apart. I gave them all a red pen. About 15 minutes later, we started talking about it. They asked me just a ton of questions. Everything had red pen all over it.
Yeah.
So I took all the copies back. I compiled all the questions. I found all the answers. I ended up running through this process, sifting this business plan like 3 times. They were so sick of it by the time we were done. But God bless them. They were such troopers. And so by the end, I had no more red marks on it.
Wow.
Like, okay, well, great. Now I have a business plan. What am I going to do with it? So I went into my sphere, right? What do? Realtors. We go find our sphere, right?
Yep.
And I cherry picked like 10 people that I knew were highly intelligent, highly motivated, and a couple of them might have had the money. A couple of them certainly knew people who would have the money. And so I sent it to them, and I just put a little blurb out there. I was like, guys, I'm sending this to you because I trust your opinion. I would be very interested in finding out if this is something that you see value investing in. And if you don't, I want to know why. No holds barred.
I love that.
Lay it on me.
Yeah.
And I started getting amazing feedback. And then I started getting people asking how much we were talking from each person would meet the full goal. That was an exciting conversation. And so by the end, I think it was maybe a 2-week span of time from the point of red pen to the point of having funds. I raised about $5,000 to kickstart this business. Nice. And had just people who believed in me. And that was profound. It's like, what are you doing? You're crazy.
Yeah, that's that fuel, man.
Oh, well, and then it turned to fear, right? 'Cause you're like, oh, God, now it's all been put into my lap. I have to execute this. And that started a whole nother journey of just walking through the fire and overcoming the fear that comes with the unknown and all of that. And it's blossomed into such a cool thing that I'm so proud of.
Oh, that's so cool, man. It's something that's so needed, Like, I think about it every time I'm out there. I'm like, God damn it, I could be doing so much more than this right now.
Well, and it's I gave myself a job. Let's get real. Now I wear a hat, so I'm organizing and having to level up the way I do real estate and the way I organize my day to be able to accommodate both of these needs and show up for my family. Yeah. So it's forced me to elevate myself in ways the caterer, Alannah, would have never, ever told people she was going for.
Yeah, no, that's growth, man. That's growth every little bit.
Oh, yeah.
So what sets... Are they like really nice posts, or like when people comment? I'm trying to figure. I was like, what could make it that much more awesome?
Well, you know what my spiel was when you want your 10-second pitch or whatever. The idea that the first impression you get from the street is entirely under your control.
Yes.
How do you, as a realtor, want to present yourself to the public driving by? How competent do you want them to think you are? How polished do you want them to think you are? How resourceful do you want them to think you are? If, for example, how many signposts have you seen that they're sitting around for months and months and they start sagging? And they start doing all the sad stuff. And you see the agent's sign eventually fall off and it's sitting in the dirt and the agent's just eating dirt. And you're watching the sign get all beat up by our Florida weather. And you go, boy, either that contractor stinks, that realtor doesn't know what he's doing or where his stuff is, which means he's not managing his stuff because he's not visiting it. And does that necessarily translate to who I want doing business for me?
Or doesn't care.
Or exactly. The apathy, the indifference towards the whole process is just kind of unacceptable to people like me. So I started finding solutions for all those things. I'm like, I want a beautiful product. I want it to not be destructive to the yard. I want to know I'm not busting power lines or maybe hitting piping. I want to know that if something goes awry, storms happen. Things go crazy. Kids with bats do stupid stuff. Things happen. And having someone to call and go, hey, I got a problem. I need you to handle it. Stat. Help. Mayday, mayday, whatever that conversation looks like. I want to know I can get somebody on the phone because that's exactly what got me into the business of doing it because nobody was picking up the phone. So it was like, if I tick all these boxes, surely someone else will find value in that. And that's the value proposition.
So well thought out. Jesus. That's so cool, man. It's like, that's what they say. Necessity is the mother of invention.
Oh, yes.
You know, like,
They
you're
were
like,
right.
I need all of this. And how many other people need this? You know?
Boy, if they find value in it too, is it worth it?
Yeah.
Of course it is.
Oh, so cool, man. So now, how long have you been doing that?
About 2 years now.
Okay.
Two and change. It's hit a place where it's profiting. I actually had to double my inventory to meet the need when we had that little surge we experienced about a year and a half ago. And that was amazing, very exciting stuff.
Life changing.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. So at about the 1 year mark, I had to double inventory to keep up with my realtor's needs, which was really exciting. And I managed to do it.
Yeah, man. That's got to feel good, man, doesn't it?
I'm really proud of it.
Yeah.
I'm really proud. A lot of blood, sweat, and tears, and a lot of hours away from home. Couldn't possibly do it without the support I have at home.
And it's like it's the contrast. You have that uncertainty, that fear, that like, I don't know if I could do this and so scared and I got to get money, to that feeling when you look back and like, wow, man, this is working.
Yeah.
Those lows kind of make those highs that much higher.
Oh, yeah.
You know, that's so cool.
Yeah, so I told my kids, I'm like, I can build it to the point where it's what you might want to do or take on, or I'm going to build it into something great and I'm going to sell it.
Yeah.
And then I'm going to be free for the next great idea.
That's it, man. That's the true entrepreneurial mind. I love it.
Yeah, you can't afford to be attached to things forever.
That's an old Buddhist, like the old Buddhist philosophy, about attachment, live without.
Yeah. Daily practice is tough. Yeah. I admire everyone who even works on it.
Oh, yeah. So the other thing I see about that business, like technology, artificial intelligence, I mean, I don't see it affecting that
Not
for
at
a
all.
long time.
No way.
Until you got maybe a truck that's got an arm that could just go down and like pink, like, well, yeah. I don't know.
And as a matter of fact, it's been cool. One of the value propositions is that you can order it online.
Oh,
it's
nice.
a 60-second order process. It goes straight to a Google form, goes into a back office spreadsheet, gets sorted out into a schedule.
Man, you got a good
An
mind
invoice
for
gets
this
set
stuff.
out. It gets paid. It gets scheduled. It gets done. And that way the whole thing is also trackable. So you can see growth, right?
Wow, man. Like, I really look up to that, all those traits, For me, those are things that I'm constantly working on, trying to figure out, So, I mean, that's a strong suit. That is
Thank you.
Epic. And that's something that you can take into any business, So let me ask you, what do you feel that you're lacking in when it comes to starting a business, running a business, if any?
Oh, absolutely. There's areas of opportunity all over the place. I can only be in so many places at once. It's been really challenging to find the desire to market myself. I find it's a lot easier to fall back on the word of mouth routine, which is definitely an area I can do with developing. My marketing definitely needs some love, but I have happy patrons.
Yeah,
so
goes a long way.
I'm doing all right now, but that's definitely an area of explosive opportunity.
Yeah. I mean, that'll take your business.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, you go global with it.
Yeah, and there's so many people farther along on the tech thing than me. I see people being able to connect things. You make it clickable here. It does 4 action plans at once. It drops into this place. It starts ticking all these dominoes that's all beyond my comprehension.
Like the funnel type.
I had to make it really, really bite-sized because I don't consider myself tech savvy. Most of the people I know don't. So the fact that I've learned and overcome enough just terror of the process to put together something that works can definitely do with fine-tuning, but it's working.
Yeah, very cool. So how about going to real estate? Like, there's a lot of changes coming up. You have obviously artificial intelligence, AI, ChatGPT. that's definitely having an effect. I think positive, 100%. But do you see technology, ChatGPT, those kinds of things? How do you see that affecting the real estate business in the next 5 to 10 years?
That's a great question. So I've heard so much concern about the human touch leaving the process, and I just don't subscribe. That just doesn't feel like the reality that I'm living in. I see people as they get more and more disconnected by the immediacy of tech. They crave connection. They want it more. They need it. And
Yep.
as they've disconnected so thoroughly from it, and that is all optional, they find themselves attracted to it for the purposes of going through something scary. And real estate is usually the asset that is, of the most value to the majority of people that we serve. That's probably the highest dollar value they'll ever be engaging and playing with. So it's a scary process for even someone who's done it before.
Yeah.
So I don't see our jobs being threatened. I think it, like you said, it gives us the opportunity to use it as a tool and to elevate our practice. But I don't think that as long as we continue to serve with the goal of connecting, that we will lose our place in the real estate world.
Yeah, I think, and there's going to be some people that gravitate to that type of business. The very numbers driven. They're like, okay, boom, this is what I want. This is how I want it. This is when I want it. I don't care. I have no emotion. There's people like that in business, but when it comes to the majority, like you say, this is a huge, huge deal. And people need that emotional support. They
Yeah.
need somebody there, like we were saying, to be able to man these issues with composure, relay.
And compassion.
Yes.
Can automatic
Yes.
processing offer compassion? No. Can it
Yeah.
offer empathy? No.
100%.
Can it correct your very human errors? Probably not. It's just going to tell you there's something wrong, and it's going to put a little red box around it and make you figure it out. That's
Yes.
as far as auto can do.
Yeah.
I think the couple of years ago, not to mention names, too bad, but when we saw the Big Z coming in and pulling all the junk that they were doing,
Oh, yeah.
looking to undercut the market, looking to buy out all the competition, just playing all the games that they were playing, I watched people's expectation of immediacy not being met, and I watched the frustration ensue over that.
Oh,
I
yeah.
watched the realtors who were interested in doing business, and I watched the patrons who were interested in buying not
Get 'em
getting
on the phone.
not getting any connection.
It's the
with
worst.
it. Like, you couldn't buy the house even if you loved it and even if it was
Yeah.
perfect, because there was nobody who was going to man it.
God, I remember that. It's
Yeah.
like call, email, like,
Oh, yeah.
I want to buy this house, guys. Somebody help me.
Yeah, I'm trying to send you a contract, but you messed up the form funnel it's supposed to go through. Help. There's nobody
Yeah.
on the other side to help you. So I found the people who are still attracted to that auto version of doing business. Those are the same people who want flat fee listing services.
Yep.
They're the same people. They go, I might take the hit for somebody not advocating for my full dollar value, but at least I'm not having to pay them a commission. At least I'm not having to deal with, having to give paperwork to anybody. I'll just deal directly with them and, do the job that they have
Yeah. And
an
they'll always be
education to do.
there.
And those people, exactly, will always be there. But I'll tell you what, I have never worked a flat fee deal where I have not picked up the business of the other side of that flat fee listing. By the end of the nonsense that I've managed to overcome being human, I have so thoroughly dropped a deuce on the flat fee listing agency
Yeah.
that they want my business, and we stay in contact as a result. So if
Yeah,
anything,
man.
it kind of pushes people back into seeing the value of people.
It gives them something to compare to. So yes, I'm on the same exact boat. I don't think there's ever going to be a place to where the human emotion, compassion, empathy, all those things are just going to not be wanted or needed.
Mm-hmm.
And then, so the other big change coming to the real estate is the big lawsuit. Have you been hearing about the big lawsuit right now with
Would
the
you
buyer's agent?
refresh
So-
everyone and myself so we're all on the same
this
page?
is what I've been seeing, and it's getting further than anybody has ever imagined it would. There have been brokerages that have settled and are already changing their model to where the lawsuit is against, I want to say it was Keller Williams, a lot of big brokerages that the seller says, I don't want to have to pay the buyer's half. I only want to pay you for selling. The buyer has to pay for their agent. And there have been brokerages that have settled and say, okay, this is how we're writing our deals now. We pay 3% or whatever, you can negotiate because it's always negotiable. But if a buyer wants to have a buyer's agent, they have to pay it. Have you heard
Oh,
about this?
I have heard about it.
So, I mean, and I've heard lots of conversations, and I understand some of the things, but in your mind, number one, do you think this is going to be a nationwide thing? You think it's going to happen? And two, and if it does, what's it going to do to the buyer's agent?
Well, Al, let me pull my crystal ball out, and
Yes.
I do definitely see it as a nationwide conversation. I don't think it's a good thing. The fallout I see for the buyer's agent, and ultimately, let's get real. The real person who loses here is the consumer.
100%.
Right? The agents, of course, they lose, but they can just shift into listing. So what does it matter to them? It's really the consumer that suffers dramatically in that instance for several reasons. In our area in particular, Martin County suffers a little more than St. Lucie County this way, but the whole Treasure Coast as a whole has something in common, and that's that the cost of living and affordability does not line up with the wages. And that's across the whole state of Florida. We have a statewide accountability to get with the program on, but that's another conversation. In this case, for our locals, if my buyers in Port St. Lucie were told that they also had to pay me to have me represent them, protect them, guide them through an unfamiliar process, most of them either would put themselves at the mercy of just the listing agent and hope for the best, or they would choose not to buy because they wouldn't be able to afford to pay me and pay the closing costs and pay the down payment and pay for all the front end things to handle whatever their current situation is that they're extricating themselves from to move into this new space, right? So they're the ones who lose. And I think that bears a lot of consideration, particularly here on the Treasure Coast, because we already have such a difficulty for the locals supporting our community, being able to afford to actually live here, that if they have to transplant themselves so far north or so far west to be able to afford to drive here and serve, what is the motivation for them coming here to drive and serve? And how many other places mirror that group of citizens that you end up with tourist towns, right? Florida is a tourist-driven state, and if the people who run the businesses that serve the tourists can't afford to live here, why are they going to commute here to get paid poorly and then have to go drive back to where they can afford to live? That's just a terrible situation, and so that could lead to dramatic outflux of the working class and the working body, and then the only people left here are either retired or they're working remotely, getting paid better from another state.
Yeah, I mean,
it's not a pretty picture.
It's scary. Well, let me ask you, why do you think it's gaining so much steam? Why do you think these brokerages are settling and saying, hey, you're right, we're changing the way we do things?
Unfortunately, in my experience, the powers that be on a higher corporate level often choose to take the hit because it doesn't affect them the same way it affects the people actually doing the job and being the recipients of the job well done, right? The agents
they're getting paid
and
anyway.
the clients, because they're getting paid anyway. So what do they care?
Yep.
In the end, it doesn't directly affect them. It's just something they have to now explain to their angry agents who may or may not leave to go somewhere else anyway. So where's the big risk for the corporate level versus the quote working level, which is where we are? I think that's why it's gained as much attention as it has, because it's being fed into. And I think that that's a mistake. I think that on a corporate level, if a higher level says no and puts a foot down and also comes up with an articulate reason why and an articulate case that they can present to shut that down, they're advocating for their agents. They're also advocating for their customer base, and they're ultimately doing a favor to their communities.
Yeah, when I see these brokerages doing that, it gives me the perception that they really don't care about their consumer. Now, the agents, yes, that's one thing, but at the end of the day, who's the most important person of all of this?
The consumer that needs us. We have a job because of them.
Without them, I mean, there is nothing, so it gives me that as well. It gives me that feeling when I see that. And as a consumer, like, I'm sure some of them are, I don't know, do you think Do you think like the average person sees it like that when they look at it, say, oh, they're doing it like that? Do you think they feel it personally, like the way we see it?
No, no. And I think that's because they have no motivation to look at a broader picture than their own experience and their own needs.
So they
The
just see the
average
money.
person sees the dollar value. They go, oh, I have to spend 8 more grand to be able to buy this $300,000 house. I'm out.
Yeah.
And it's that simple. I can't afford to. So that means I either have to go somewhere and buy something cheaper, or I have to take the risk of wondering if the person who's doing my paperwork and guiding my trajectory is actually working in my best interests. And what a shame for the profession. I've witnessed here in my time doing real estate a lot of professionals seeking to elevate the perception of realtors in our community. I think there's a lot of pride with giving each other a hand up and the notion that all boats rise with the tide. I think it's created an environment with greater sharing and greater collaboration. And I think that all of those things are very good for the profession. And this is certainly trying to take a couple steps backwards.
Yeah, man. Yeah, it's a tough one. It's definitely a tough one. And, going into, us as agents, I saw a post the other day and somebody, and I don't know if you've seen it. I gave some pretty good answers there. I felt really good about it. Then I did a whole video on it, but saying, hey, do you think real estate agents are worth that percentage? And do you think that it should just be a flat fee because they're trying to raise up the prices and it's raising the market? It's pretty.
I think I saw it.
Yeah.
I think I was following the comments for a little bit there.
Yeah, and obviously there's so many reasons why I don't agree with with it, but
it's nice to see what other people think, though.
But
I commend you for that.
Yeah, so when I was looking at it, I was like, man, do people really, I don't think they understand what goes into it.
No.
And on both sides of it. So I kind of went into a bit, I was like, yes, we have lots of expenses. I was, really vague at first. Then I got into it. I was like, well, this is how much professional photos and videos cost. This is how much we spend on our annual dues. This is how much I spend annual on going to conferences and training. And, this is how much we spend on marketing. This is how much we spend on sponsoring to build our brand, to be able to attract the bit, and I laid it all out. No answer.
Of course.
He's like,
had
no idea. And then on top of that, the time spent building the relationships with the people to do the business with, it's like there's so much that people just see. Oh, you open the door, they buy the house, you make 10 grand.
Oh God.
And I think, it's just a misconception. And that's kind of another reason why some people are like, oh yeah, why do I have to pay them to just show me the house, Yeah.
And a lot of people don't have the awareness of how to break that down like you just did in their mind, right? They don't know, and it's natural to be naive and play it off like it's very easy. Kids go, oh, I don't have to go to school. I wish I could go work, or I wish I could stay home. They have no concept of what that actually means, right? They just say it because it's easy to say because they don't want to do what they have to do.
Yeah.
But if you just took it another way, let's say it takes me a year to build a relationship, and then let's say 90 days to get from the point where we've decided to list you and get your paperwork done so that we could start the process of preparing, so that we can get you on the market, so that we can get your buyers, so we can get you closed. Let's say that took 90 days, and you took that commission and you divided it by the,
however many hours
it took to see what your actual hourly rate is.
Mm-hmm.
It's not that much.
Oh yeah.
It's really not that much.
And you're spending all that time with no guarantee you're going to make.
Guarantee.
This is you're risking time away from your family. That's another point I made. I was like, and just so you know, I think nobody has the right to put a value on time spent away from their family than the person themselves.
Sure. And in our industry, how many times are we working weekends while our families are free?
Yeah.
To serve our clients who are also working.
Yeah.
We spend a lot of time with their families for however long that period is that we're serving them.
Yeah, man.
And they don't have any concept of it also being sales. So you're living from commission to commission, which means your closing may have to be budgeted over 6 months because your next two deals blew up because somebody decided to buy a new automobile to celebrate their impending closing. Stuff that out of our control happens all the time.
You could tell them a million times. Like,
don't finance the
they'll
furniture.
Show up to closing with
a new car. And you're like, you didn't buy that. Please. Oh, no, I just left the dealership.
Oh my God. Yeah. No, it's a fun business though. It
It is.
really, really is so rewarding to be a part of such a big moment in people's lives and feeling that joy with them, you know?
I love that.
Yes.
Yeah.
So let me ask, do you have any other cool ideas in the pipeline, or are you planning on anything new, anything different coming up?
Oh gosh, I mean, right now I've really got my hands full between continuing to build my business and showing up for my family because they're they're a lot. I got a high schooler and a middle schooler, and they're both in band. And anyone who's ever been a music student or a student of the arts at all knows how many hours, just like real estate, go into it way before you see an end result. And it's been intense, and I'm really interested in showing up for them that way.
Good.
They're going to the same high school I went to.
Oh, how
It's so cool to
cool.
be back in the space that I was in, 15 years ago,
Yeah.
and just loving every second of it. And it's been a lot. So I'm really motivated to start finding ways to use my sphere and the networking to establish a greater quality legacy in that high school by the time I
Wow,
leave,
that's
and just leaving
awesome.
it a better space than it was when I got there
How
as an adult.
cool.
Like, that's so cool.
Yeah, man. And some people are everyone's motivated by something different. Some people it's just a dollar, but dude, it's cool. Nothing wrong with it. Me, I'm more of a legacy kind of like what kind of difference am I leaving?
Right.
Like not in the music scene, in the community, and whatever it is, that's what drives me.
Oh yeah.
I don't, a lot of times I lose money on a lot of my projects and stuff, but it still feels so rewarding. It's like, hey, it's okay because we got this out of it. I was able to, showcase these people and help their career. And,
Well,
so
and also a lot of the time that energy feeds back into what you have in your cup to then pour into your business,
100%.
right? Like I dance. I think I mentioned that. I,
Yeah.
I teach Argentine tango, and I have been dancing for a
Wow.
very long time. I started at 18, and it's been so rewarding to be able to fill my cup with that, and then every time I'm drained, being able to go back to that as a resource that consistently fills my love cup is what I like to call it,
I
so that
love
I
it.
have something to give. Because when you let that get too low or you let it get to empty, you have nothing but venom to give to anybody else around you. You have
Yeah.
no appreciation. Gratitude goes out the window. You're just so drained. You don't have it in you to be able to focus that way. So I try to continually go dip into those things that re-energize me, like your music does you. And
Yeah.
we all need something like that.
Yeah, yeah, man. And you could see the people that don't, man. You could almost feel that energy
You
from
can
them.
feel the energy. Oh boy,
Man.
nothing quite as powerful as sitting at a dinner table with a bunch of people that you love, and you see the way they talk about their day. Who's working doing something that they love that might be hard and miserable and extra hours and unpaid and this and that and the other, and who's working, whether it's the corporate 9 to 5 or some mom and pop 9 to 5 kind of deal that they just absolutely loathe what they're doing, and they come
Hmm.
home and they have nothing positive to bring to the space because they've invested nothing positive into their space, and because they're going to a space that doesn't fill their cup.
Yeah,
And just to
man.
see them sitting right next to each other, like going about telling you about their day back to back, it's clear as crystal.
Yeah, man. And that feeds into your health.
Big time.
All that energy, all that negative energy, all that stress. I mean, it's now they're able to prove this scientifically
Oh yeah.
how much negative thinking and stress cause issues, health
Mhm.
issues,
Mhm.
cancer, digestion issues, all of that. You actually, when people talk about a gut feeling, they've actually found that there's a lot of nerve endings that yeah,
Oh yeah, they're freaking out.
yeah.
Have you ever heard of Masuri Emoto?
It sounds familiar. The
Mm,
water.
the messages in water,
Yes.
absolutely. It's a profound thing because we're meat suits, right? We are mostly water, or something like 90% water, give or take. And the idea that our space can literally influence our fibers to the very core, what we're
Yes.
made of, how that can be so impactful.
When
It
you say
goes
space, mental space, is that what
mental
you're
space,
saying?
physical space. Gosh, so in Emoto's book, there were several examples, and I encourage anyone listening to go get this book. It's like $10,
Yes.
worth every penny. It has so many experiments that he did on water placed in a glass or placed in a cup, something, and he would expose the different glasses of water to different energies, whether they were verbal energies, whether it was just space, whether it was certain color influences, whatever those things were. And then after exposing them for a period of time, he would freeze both of them. And he would pull them out after freezing them, and he would look at them under a microscope. And he would watch the way the ice crystals had crystallized, and the method with which they did that was so profound that he was putting the side-by-side pictures of things like love and hate next to each other. He did one that was really cool. It was in a classroom, elementary school kids, right? 2 classrooms back to back. Each of them had a glass of water, and the students were told for 30 days, or whatever that period of time was, that they were going to come inside, and as they entered the door to the classroom for the day, they were going to greet the water. And the one classroom was assigned to compliment it, to just speak highly of it, to say good morning, whatever that simple thing was. Every student interacted with this water this way for that period of time. The other classroom was told the most horrible things that you never want to say to a person. I want you to say to this cup of water. And so you're horrible, you're disgusting, you're fat, you're ugly, you're stupid. Whatever those degrading things were, they were expressing this to that glass of water. And so the point where the 2 of them were frozen and their images were put side to side, it was shocking. It was shocking how different they were. And if we're made of water and we're putting ourselves in an environment that makes us feel that way, because that's what we're exposing ourselves to, how much of a shot are we really giving ourselves to meet our fullest potential?
Oh, 100%, man.
You know, there's so many examples of music that it was exposed to that all had different effects, which was really beautiful and cool. Tango frozen couplets, like a DNA strand.
Oh, wow.
Very unique.
Tango did.
And it takes 2 to tango.
Oh,
so how interesting to
wow.
see that perceived visually. And the last one that I remember that was just stuck in my mind was it even went as far as paintings or images or words, good or bad.
What, next
love.
to the water?
Yeah.
Really?
Like someone did a beautiful calligraphy of the word love or patience or kindness or whatever that, positive, whatever it was. And then and they were just physically present. They didn't say anything. They didn't interact. They were merely in the same space.
Wow.
And they had an effect. And I thought that was really profound.
Yes, man. Every little thing matters,
Mm-hmm.
Everything. I kind of look at this, as much as everything matters, as much as we have control over everything. Do you ever sit back and when you look at the whole universe, like how small of a speck we are?
Oh, yeah.
And how much does that really matter? Like, it's like such a fine line. And I think about this a lot because I'm all about having control of my thought, having control of my environment, knowing that, everything I do matters and gets me where I want to go, but also looking at that whole other side of it. It's just like, how much does it really matter, though?
I think it's everything. And I think that's the lesson. I think that's why we're all here. That's what we're here to learn. I think ultimately our day-to-day successes and failures don't matter in the grand scheme where we are a speck in the universe, which I find so humbling and beautiful.
Yes.
But the notion that we could choose to meet our day with gratitude and with grace and with enthusiasm, those are all things that we can create and surround ourselves with to continue to create so that we are setting the stage for our experience to be a beautiful one. I think that's all that matters. And choosing to harness that is really the only thing we do have control over. We don't have control over the environment or what other people are doing. We do have control of whether or not we put ourselves in that space some of the time. And the rest of the time, the only thing we have control of is our reaction to it.
That's it. That's everything. I love the way you put that, because I think about this stuff all the time, and I'm so intrigued on how that crosses other people's minds,
I think it's really cool, too. You should keep asking people.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I think about this, on my intro to this, I talked about the journey. This is a journey for me to be around people like you, other entrepreneurs that are doing things, that are starting to do things, that have done things. I mean, I get so much value from this, and for the listeners, to me, that's what it's about. I want people to come on this journey and get what I'm getting out of it, because I get so much, like the books, any resources, any experiences that you had, so this has been awesome. you are such an amazing speaker.
Thank you.
It's very articulated, very eloquent. Like, you get your point across precisely. These are all things, the more and more people I speak to, the more I see it. And everybody's got their ways. But that's one thing I really did notice from you, which is really cool.
Thank you. That's really cool.
I'm learning from it. I'm learning a lot. So, like, do you have any parting thoughts? Going back to, like I said, this journey, this is, I want people to take something away from this. And I'm sure just listening to you this whole time, they have a lot. But do you have any parting words to the listeners right now?
Oh, if I had one parting thing to get across, it's when you have a great idea, do it.
Love it.
So many people I know more intelligent than I am. So many people with better ideas. And yet they never even ask the question, how can I execute this? Who could I ask that can bring me insight? And I would love for people to, end this podcast wondering, what's something I can take that's just been a thought mulling? What can I do with that? How can I grow that and nurture that into something that I'll be really proud of?
Yeah, man, that's it. I mean, it all starts with a thought.
But get excited.
So many things die as a thought.
Yeah, get excited to fail.
Yeah.
Boy, my experience on the team, that if there was one really big takeaway, it was that only through failure are you going to become comfortable enough to open yourself up for success. Yeah. So you have to be able to fail and willing to fail. And a lot of times those are asking questions that, people might think you're crazy for. And I think that's why a lot of great ideas never get spoken out loud. Quit being afraid of that. Just start talking about it.
Yep. I forget. I wish I remember the word. What's the fear of what other people think? I listen to Bradley a lot. I know Richie, if you're listening, you know the word. It's allotractophobia.
Ooh. I need a new word, so when you get it,
I will.
It to me.
And I say it all the time. Have drawn a blank. So right now, when Caitlin edits, she's gonna put it up probably right around here.
Oh yeah, nice.
Something phobia.
Don't be whatever that is.
Don't do that.
Just talk about your great ideas and start finding people who are interested in helping you find the next step towards that goal.
And if they're not, it's okay.
And if they're not,
totally. Find somebody else.
You've lost absolutely nothing saying it out loud, because every time you repeat it, you're going to say it in a different way that's more and more authentic.
Yes.
And by the time you get to the hands of the right person or the ear of the right person, you're going to have it put together and you're going to be able to express to them exactly what your vision is.
That's it, man. Just do it.
Do it.
I should get a Nike sponsorship on here, because what we talk about every episode, that's the biggest thing. Just do it, man.
Yeah.
Yeah. I love it. Well, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you for having me. This has been great.
So how can people get a hold of you? What's the best way to get a hold of you? Do you have your Instagram handle?
Absolutely. I'm Alannah Ghazal, Realtor. You can find me on both Facebook and on Instagram. My name is spelled a little funny, so if you get lost, find Keepin U Posted and work backwards.
Yeah, you guys reach if you have any questions. I'm sure she'll be open to talk to you about anything. Need any help real estate? She's an amazing agent. She'll help you put your post up if you are an agent, which is awesome. But
and then I'll find your buyer before you're even on the market, because you're going to give me a lead time of 5 to 7 days.
There you go. All right, guys. Well, thanks again for tuning in. This was awesome. I love doing this, guy, and thank you so much for being here. And
my pleasure.
Yeah, we'll catch you guys next time.
Have a great day, guys.